The other day we were looking at this fig tree, and I had thought that BT dust that I sprayed on those beans, and there was a little bit of a breeze, I thought the dust had gotten over here. And my bride said, no. See all these little holes in here? That's like sawdust powder. Because see, this is dead, and it's been dead since last winter. And the bark is no longer, and that wood underneath is dry hard wood, and that is where creatures have been burrowing into it and eating it, I assume. But that's like sawdust. Now this is hopefully fairly easy to explain. That is dead to right there. Now I wouldn't, and you can see that bark split. That means it's probably dead. Now, it might have expanded and split the bark last winter when it froze after it was 80-some degrees and went down to 8 degrees. And it might have split it last year, or it might split right now because it's dead. And so this is where you eventually want to have the cut. And right there you see the upper part of this might be dead and the bottom part might be alive. But what I would do is just, you know, this is all dead. I would take all this off to like here. And then next spring, I would cut it off there and see whether it's green. If it's green, I'd just stop. Then I'd cut it again and see if it's green. Or you see a bit of sign of green. Once I see a sign of green, I would probably stop. But it would be nice to be able to cut that off and be all fresh underneath. With the size of that branch, I don't think that's going to happen. It might happen all the way back over here at the tree, at the trunk. But you're trying to let this grow next year. And so before it buds out next spring, late winter, before the sap runs, you want to come in here and clean up these bigger places, and you would cut this off at least 2 inches past that. So I would just cut it off right there next year. But right now you could cut this off anywhere. It doesn't matter, because dead wood can't get disease in it and can't transfer to the central part of the live plant. So it doesn't matter where you cut this off. It's just where the healthy wood is and the dead wood stops. Same thing with this one. It looks dead all the way to the tree up there. I would not cut it off at that collar. I'd cut this dead part off right up in here somewhere and just take this branch out. And then next spring, before the sap runs and it blooms out, I would come in there and cut that off with a really sharp saw at the collar. And that would be, because there's nothing growing on it, and there's probably nothing going to grow on it. And these are gonna take over in the future. And up there on an 8-foot ladder, you could get to it and see where this growth stops and starts and cut back accordingly. But see, right there, we've only lost about 3 feet because you have growth there. Now that's a tougher call because it's smaller wood, and that's where you'd want to scrape it with your knife. But I would just cut it back to about right there. Just lop that off and clean it up next spring, late winter. Clean the stub off. But see, you can do that with a lot of these is the same way. You come back to wherever the growth is and just, there's growth, so come up here and cut it off up here. Scratch one of these. See, they're still limber. But, and you can look to see if the bud, see, that looks like it's got a bud on it. That part looks healthy. That looks dead. So I would cut it off up in here, and then next year trim it accordingly. And this one here, that might be a little growth going on it, so you're going to cut this, just cut the end off and then clean that up, shorten it up next year. And see, that whole branch is dead all the way to that fork and maybe to the tree. I would cut it off all the way to that fork and then cut it off at the tree if required next year with a flush cut. And then all those cuts will heal over. Hope it makes sense to you. But most of this stuff, it's been dead a while. See, there's nothing to it, it's just dead. You can see the branch, it just doesn't have any life to it. It's no real big resistance.